ballroom shimmered with crystal lights, laughter, and the faint scent of champagne. Cameras flashed like a storm as Manhattan's elite gathered for the Langston Foundation Gala. Among them stood Elena Hartwell, 6 months pregnant, wearing a midnight blue gown she'd designed herself. Her hands trembled slightly as she adjusted her clutch. She hadn't wanted to come, but her husband, Eric Langston, had insisted. "It'll help the company's image," he'd said. Now she realized he hadn't meant their image. He meant his. Across the marble floor, Eric was laughing, a hand resting too comfortably on the back of Vanessa Cole, his assistant, his rumored protégé. The woman glittered in scarlet silk, her lips curling into a smile when she spotted Elena. It wasn't a smile of courtesy. It was the smile of victory. Elena's breath caught. Conversations hushed as Vanessa whispered something to Eric. He hesitated only for a heartbeat before stepping aside, letting Vanessa glide toward his wife like a predator scenting weakness. "Well," Vanessa purred loud enough for nearby guests to hear, "I didn't expect you to show up tonight. Brave of you, considering how fragile you look." "I'm fine," Elena replied quietly. "Please step aside." But Vanessa leaned closer, the scent of her expensive perfume cutting through the air. "You should have stayed home, sweetheart. No one wants a scene, unless you're planning to beg for him back." Laughter rippled through the crowd. Elena felt her chest tighten, the baby stirring. She turned to leave. That's when Vanessa's hand shot out, gripping the delicate fabric of her gown. "Oops," Vanessa said, tugging sharply. The silk ripped with a sound that silenced the entire ballroom. The tear traveled from her waist to the floor, bearing her baby bump under the blinding lights. Gasps. Flashes. The crowd froze. Elena staggered back, covering herself with shaking hands, her face burning with shame. "You? How could you?" she whispered. Eric didn't move. His eyes darted toward the reporters, toward the investors watching. His voice came cold, detached. "Vanessa, that's enough." But it wasn't. Vanessa tilted her chin, smirking. "She's faking it, Eric. Everyone knows she trapped you with a fake pregnancy." Elena's vision blurred. Someone laughed. Someone else murmured, "Scandal." The room began to spin. Her heart pounded against her ribs. She could barely breathe. Then a chair scraped. A low voice sliced through the chaos. Calm, commanding, furious. "Enough." Every head turned. At the center table, a tall man stood. Dark suit, eyes like storm clouds, power radiating from every breath. Ethan Hartwell, youngest of the Hartwell brothers, stepped forward, his voice echoing through the hall. "Who gave you the right to humiliate a pregnant woman?" The music stopped. Even the photographers lowered their cameras. Vanessa froze, suddenly pale. And in that breathless silence, everyone realized the real story of the night had just begun. For a full 5 seconds, no one moved. The orchestra had gone silent, champagne glasses frozen halfway to lips. Elena could hear only the furious beating of her own heart. The man who had spoken, tall, broad-shouldered, his black suit tailored with quiet authority, was someone she'd only ever seen in business magazines. Ethan Hartwell, the youngest son of Arthur Hartwell, CEO of the multi-billion-dollar Hartwell Group. His family didn't just fund this gala, they owned half the companies attending it. He walked toward her, every step echoing on the marble floor. The crowd parted instinctively, as if afraid to breathe. Vanessa's smirk faltered, her voice trembling. "Mr. Hartwell, this isn't your..." But Ethan didn't even look at her. He stopped in front of Elena, removed his jacket, and wrapped it gently around her shoulders, covering the torn gown and her trembling body. His voice was low, controlled, yet it carried to every corner of the ballroom. "Whoever you are," he said, eyes locking on Vanessa, "you've crossed a line that no decent human being would cross." Vanessa stuttered. "I didn't mean..." "You meant every word," Ethan cut her off, his tone calm but lethal. "And you thought power and gossip could protect you. Not tonight." The photographers, sensing a story of seismic proportions, began snapping again. Eric, face pale, finally stepped forward. "Ethan, this is a misunderstanding. My wife..." "Your wife?" Ethan turned sharply, his stare slicing through him. "That's your wife you let someone assault in public?" A whisper swept through the crowd. Investors shifted uneasily. Even the hotel manager stood frozen near the stage. Ethan turned back to Elena. "Can you stand?" She nodded weakly, gripping his arm for balance. The warmth of his hand steadied her, but her knees nearly gave out. "I just need a minute," she whispered, breath uneven. "You're leaving," he said quietly, firm but gentle. You don't owe these people another second. Security guards appeared, summoned by Ethan's silent gesture. The crowd parted again as he led Elena toward the exit. Someone muttered, "He's defending her?" Another voice hissed, "That's Arthur Hartwell's son. Don't interfere." As they reached the door, Elena stopped, dizzy. Pain gripped her abdomen, sharp and sudden. She gasped, clutching her belly. The color drained from her face. Ethan turned immediately, catching her before she could fall. "Call an ambulance," he ordered, voice suddenly urgent. "Now!" Eric froze. "Elena," he began, but Ethan shot him a glare that could cut glass. "Stay where you are. You've done enough." Elena's vision blurred. She could hear people shouting, heels clattering, the rush of panic. Ethan's voice was the only one that broke through the chaos, calm and deep near her ear. "I've got you. Just breathe." Her fingers clutched his sleeve as darkness crept in. "Somewhere," someone cried. "She's bleeding." Ethan lifted her effortlessly, carrying her out of the ballroom as photographers scrambled to capture the image. The billionaire heir cradling a blood-stained, pregnant woman in his arms. Flash after flash lit the marble hall like lightning. Outside, cold night air hit his face. Sirens wailed in the distance. He laid her gently in the backseat of his car while his driver sped ahead to clear the route. "Stay with me," Ethan said, gripping her hand as her eyes fluttered open for a moment. "You're safe now, I promise." Tears slid down Elena's cheeks. "Why? Are you helping me?" she murmured faintly. "Because," he said softly, glancing at the small silver bracelet on her wrist, engraved with a faint H, "some things can't be ignored." As the ambulance doors slammed shut, Ethan stared at that bracelet, his family's crest, and whispered to himself, how could she possibly have that? When Elena opened her eyes, everything was white. The walls, the sheets, the flowers on the bedside table. The beeping of a heart monitor echoed softly in the quiet room. She blinked, disoriented. Her throat was dry, her body heavy. For a moment she didn't remember where she was. Then the pain in her abdomen reminded her. The gala, the fall, the blood. Her hand instinctively went to her stomach. "My baby," she whispered. "You're both safe." The voice was deep, calm. She turned her head. Sitting near the window, his sleeves rolled up, was Ethan Hartwell. His expression was unreadable, but his eyes held a quiet concern that made her chest tighten. "You passed out from blood loss," he said gently. "The doctor said it was close, but they stabilized you before things got worse." Tears welled in her eyes. "I don't even know you," she whispered. "Why would you help me like that?" Ethan leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. "Because no one else did," he said simply. "And because..." His eyes drifted toward the silver bracelet resting on her wrist. "That's a Hartwell crest. It's not something you just buy at a store." Elena frowned, confused. It was my mother's. She said it was a gift from an old friend before I was born." He nodded slowly, something shifting behind his calm exterior. "That's interesting." Before she could ask, the door opened. A nurse walked in, followed by a man in a gray suit, Ethan's older brother, Adrian Hartwell. His presence filled the room with quiet power. "How is she?" Adrian asked. "Recovering," Ethan replied. "The baby's fine." Adrian approached the bed, offering a polite nod. "Mrs. Langston, you were lucky tonight. The fall could have killed you and the child. We've arranged for private care and security. The press is already outside." "The press?" she echoed weakly. "They know about the incident," Adrian said. "The photos from the gala are everywhere. The Langston group is trending for all the wrong reasons." Elena's chest tightened. "Oh God," she covered her face. "He'll hate me even more." Ethan's voice cut through her panic. "No one will touch you. Not your husband, not his mistress, not the press. You'll rest here until you're strong enough to leave." She shook her head. "I can't stay. I can't afford this." "You can," Adrian said smoothly. "The Hartwell Foundation owns this hospital. Your bills are covered." "I didn't ask for charity," she said, her voice trembling. "And we're not offering charity." He nodded to Ethan, then left as quietly as he came. Elena turned to Ethan, confusion clouding her features. "Why do I feel like you're not telling me something?" He hesitated, then smiled faintly. "Because I'm not sure what it means yet." "But that bracelet..." His gaze softened. "It belongs to my family. My brothers and I each have one. Only 5 were ever made." Her pulse quickened. "That's impossible." "Maybe," he said, standing. "Maybe not. Rest, Elena. We'll talk in the morning." As the door closed behind him, she lay staring at the bracelet, the engraved H glinting under the soft hospital light. Her heart pounded with questions she didn't dare ask. Outside the room, Ethan handed the bracelet photo to Adrienne and murmured, "Run the DNA test. I want to know who she really is." Rain fell against the apartment window that night, the city lights bleeding into streaks of gold and gray. Elena sat on the floor, the old photo album open beside her. Her hands shook as she traced a picture of herself and Eric, the man she once thought was her future. 2 years earlier, she had met him at a charity architecture conference. He'd been charming, confident, with that easy smile that made people trust him instantly. She was a quiet designer, presenting her first big project. He'd come up after her speech, clapping first when no one else dared. "You have vision," he had said, offering his hand. "And you have something most people in this city have lost, sincerity." She had laughed nervously then, never realizing that sincerity would one day be the very thing that destroyed her. Back then, Eric Langston was the golden boy of New York's business scene. His father owned Langston Holdings, a construction empire. Elena's firm had just landed a contract with them. Working late nights side by side turned into shared coffee, inside jokes, then long drives home where he talked about dreams and destiny. He'd told her he loved how she saw beauty in broken buildings, like you believe even ruins deserve a second chance. She'd believed him when he said she did too. 6 months later, he proposed in the same half-finished penthouse she had designed. He knelt among blueprints and concrete dust, holding out a ring. "When this place is complete," he said, "it'll be ours, a symbol of what we build together." But the place was never finished. After the wedding, things shifted quietly. The late nights became absences, the warmth turned to polite distance. She brushed it off as stress. When she told him she was pregnant, he smiled faintly, but didn't touch her. "That's unexpected," he'd murmured. The next weeks were filled with excuses. Business trips, missed calls, his scent replaced by faint traces of another woman's perfume. Then came the first whisper. A rumor that Eric had been seen dining with his assistant, Vanessa. Elena had asked him once, voice trembling, "Is there someone else?" He didn't even deny it. "You're imagining things," he said coldly, slipping on his cufflinks. "You're emotional. You should rest." It wasn't long before she found lipstick on his shirt and a message flashing on his phone. "See you at the gala, my love. Wear red." She remembered standing in their bathroom that night, clutching the phone, her reflection pale and shaking. She'd thought about leaving, but she was already carrying his child. She'd told herself she could fix it, that maybe, when he saw the baby, he'd come back to her. Now, lying in the hospital bed, those same thoughts clawed at her chest. Her baby kicked weakly under her palm, as if reminding her that she wasn't alone. A soft knock interrupted her spiral. The door opened slightly, and Ethan stepped in holding a cup of tea. "You couldn't sleep either?" he asked quietly. She shook her head, eyes red. "I was just remembering the man I thought I married." He nodded, setting the cup on the table. "Sometimes the people who break us are the ones who smile the most when they do it." She looked up, startled by the honesty in his tone. "You sound like you know that from experience." Ethan hesitated, a flicker of pain crossing his face. "Maybe I do." He moved toward the door but paused, glancing back. "Get some rest, Elena. Tomorrow, everything might change." She didn't know what he meant, but as the night deepened, she couldn't shake the feeling that her past was about to collide violently with her future. Morning light filtered through the blinds, painting thin golden lines across Elena's hospital room. She hadn't slept. Her mind was still trapped in the echo of the night before. The flashes, the laughter, the sound of fabric tearing. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Vanessa's face, that cruel smile spreading as her world collapsed. The door creaked open. Ethan entered, phone in hand, his jaw tight. "You should see this," he said, switching on the TV. The screen lit up with breaking news. Langston Gala scandal. Pregnant wife attacked by husband's mistress. Photos from the previous night filled the airwaves. Elena on the floor, clutching her torn gown, Vanessa smirking, Ethan lifting her into his arms under a sea of flashing lights. Elena's breath caught. "Oh no, please no." Ethan muted the TV. "It's everywhere. Half the city's talking about it." Her voice broke. "They'll twist it. They'll make it my fault." He sat beside her bed, calm but firm. "Let them talk. Truth doesn't need defending, it just needs time. But time wasn't kind. Within hours, social media exploded. Langston scandal trended worldwide. Comments flooded in. She's faking it for attention. Gold digger. Poor Eric married the wrong woman. Elena buried her face in her hands. They don't even know me. Ethan hesitated, then spoke quietly. People believe lies faster than truth, especially when the lie is more entertaining. She looked up, tears glistening. And what about Eric? Has he said anything? Ethan's lips tightened. His PR team just released a statement, says the incident was an unfortunate misunderstanding and that Vanessa was overwhelmed by emotion. Elena's stomach turned. He's protecting her. Of course he is, Ethan said, anger flickering beneath his calm. His company's stock is dropping. He'll say anything to shift blame. Before Elena could respond, a knock sounded at the door. Marcus Hartwell, Ethan's older brother, stepped in, carrying a laptop. His expression was cool, calculated. Ethan, we've got something. Ethan stood. What did you find? Marcus turned the laptop toward them. On screen played the gala's official surveillance footage, crystal clear, unedited. It showed Vanessa cornering Elena, grabbing her dress, tearing it deliberately while Eric watched. This was deleted from the hotel's main system, Marcus said. Someone tried to wipe it this morning. Luckily, we had a copy. Ethan frowned. Who? Langston's PR manager, Marcus replied. He used to work for us. I recognized his signature on the request. Elena stared at the screen, trembling. So, they planned to erase everything. Looks that way, Marcus said. But now we control the narrative. I'll send it to a few media partners who still have integrity. Ethan nodded. Make sure she's protected. No reporters near this floor. Marcus gave Elena a reassuring glance. We'll handle it. You just focus on recovering. After he left, silence lingered. The sound of the monitor beeped softly in rhythm with her racing heart. Ethan leaned against the wall, watching her. You need to prepare yourself. When this video goes public, the world will change again. For you, for him, for all of us. Elena's fingers brushed her bracelet absent-mindedly. Change can't hurt worse than what's already happened. Ethan's eyes softened. Don't be so sure. He paused, lowering his voice. There's something about you that doesn't add up, Elena. That bracelet, the crest, it means more than you think. She frowned. What are you saying? Ethan straightened, his tone quiet but certain. I think last night wasn't an accident. Someone wanted you destroyed, and I intend to find out who. 2 days later, the city outside was still roaring with scandal. Reporters crowded the hospital gates, flashing cameras and shouting her name like she was some fallen celebrity. Inside, Elena stared at her reflection in the mirror. Pale skin, tired eyes, a fading bruise on her arm. The woman staring back didn't look like her anymore. The door opened. Ethan stepped in, carrying a plain envelope. You're being discharged, he said, voice calm but unreadable. My brother arranged everything. You're coming with us. With you? She blinked. To where? To the Hartwell estate, he replied. Adrian wants to speak with you in person. Her pulse quickened. Your family's mansion? Why? Ethan hesitated, studying her face. Because we need to talk about that bracelet and about your mother. The drive out of Manhattan was silent. The black car glided through traffic and out toward the Hudson Valley, where the skyline faded into rolling green hills. Elena kept her hands folded on her lap, the silver bracelet glinting faintly in the sun. Ethan sat beside her, gaze fixed out the window, saying nothing. When the gates appeared, she gasped. The Hartwell mansion wasn't a house, it was an empire made of stone and glass, perched above the valley like it ruled the horizon. Security guards opened the iron gates, as if she were royalty. She wasn't sure whether to feel honored or trapped. Adrian was waiting at the grand staircase, tall and composed, a man whose presence made silence feel mandatory. Mrs. Langston, he greeted smoothly. Welcome. Please. Just Elena, she said softly. He nodded once. Elena then, come with me. They led her through marble halls lined with portraits, each bearing the same engraved H as her bracelet. She felt small beneath their stares, like ghosts were watching her walk through time. Finally, they entered a sunlit study. On the desk lay an open file, a few faded photographs, and a DNA test folder. Her stomach nodded. What is this? Adrian gestured for her to sit. Before you panic, understand this. We don't believe in coincidences. That bracelet you wear, it's not just decoration. It's part of a set commissioned by our father decades ago. Only 5 were ever made, 4 for his sons, and 1 for someone else. Ethan leaned against the desk, arms crossed. That someone else could be you. Elena froze. That's not possible. My mother was just a school teacher. She barely knew anyone rich. Adrian's tone softened. She wasn't always a teacher. We have records showing she worked briefly at one of our father's companies as an interior consultant. Around the same time, one of the bracelets went missing. She shook her head, disbelief thick in her voice. You think your father and my mother? We're not saying that. Adrian interrupted carefully. We're saying we need the truth, which is why we ran a DNA test using the blood sample from your surgery. Elena stared at him, her heart pounding loud enough to drown out the world. You what? Ethan stepped forward, his voice quieter now. We had to be sure before saying anything. The results came back this morning. She swallowed hard. And? Adrian opened the folder, sliding a single sheet toward her. The paper trembled in his hand. You are not our sister, Elena. You're not blood. But, he hesitated. You were legally adopted by our father 28 years ago. He kept it off the records. Her breath caught. The world tilted. That's not possible. It is, Ethan said softly. You're a Hartwell by law, not by blood. Elena's vision blurred as tears welled up. She knew about me? Adrian nodded once. He knew, and for some reason he kept you hidden. For a long time, Elena couldn't speak. The truth felt too heavy to swallow. Adopted? By Arthur Hartwell, the man whose empire stretched from New York to London? Her mind spun. She'd spent her whole life struggling to be seen, and now she was being told she'd belonged to power all along, just never known it. Adrian gave her a moment, then said quietly, he wanted to protect you, perhaps, or protect himself. But our mother, she can't know yet. She wouldn't understand. That warning came too late. The study doors burst open and Eleanor Hartwell swept in, a vision of elegance and frost. Her white pearls gleamed against her black suit, her eyes sharp as glass. I knew I'd find you here, she said, her tone clipped. What is this woman doing in my home? Elena rose instinctively. Mrs. Hartwell, I? Don't speak. Eleanor's gaze cut like a blade. You are the reason reporters are camped at my gates. Because of you, my son's names are being dragged through scandal. Mother, Ethan said firmly, stepping between them. That's enough. Enough? Eleanor's voice cracked with disbelief. You bring her here, after what happened? After the shame she's brought upon this family? Adrian sighed, rubbing his temples. Mother, please. This isn't about the tabloids. Oh, I think it is, she snapped, turning back to Elena. Do you know how many years I've spent protecting this family's name? How much blood I've watched my husband spill to keep us untouchable? And now some scandalous woman ruins it in one night. Stop it! Ethan's voice thundered across the room. You don't know who she is. Eleanor froze, startled by the sharpness in his tone. And who, pray tell, is she? Adrian's silence stretched long before he answered. She's one of us. The color drained from Eleanor's face. What did you just say? She's the daughter father adopted 28 years ago, Ethan explained. We confirmed it this morning. Eleanor stared at them both as if the air had been punched from her lungs. That's impossible. Arthur would have told me. He didn't, Adrian said evenly. And now we have proof. Her composure cracked. She stumbled back, gripping a chair for balance. For the first time, the great Eleanor Hartwell looked fragile. He had no right, she whispered. After everything. After her. Ethan frowned. After who? Eleanor turned away, her voice trembling. Your father's first love, the woman who nearly ruined this family before you were born. Her name was Isabella Moore. Elena's breath caught. That was my mother's name. The room went silent. Eleanor pressed a hand to her mouth. Dear God, she murmured. So it's true. Adrian spoke softly. You knew her? Eleanor's eyes filled with tears. Not of sorrow, but of anger long buried. She was my friend, my closest friend. She worked beside me at the foundation, and all the while she was having an affair with my husband. Elena's knees weakened. That can't be true. Oh, it's true, Eleanor said bitterly. And now, decades later, the daughter of my husband's mistress stands in my house, wearing our crest, calling herself a Hartwell. Ethan moved closer to Elena, his voice steady. She didn't ask for this. She didn't even know. Eleanor's gaze softened for a brief moment before hardening again. Ignorance doesn't erase bloodlines. You're playing with fire, Ethan. He didn't flinch. Maybe it's time this family stopped pretending we're pure flame. Eleanor turned sharply and stormed out, her heels echoing down the marble corridor. Elena sank into a chair, trembling. "I didn't want any of this." Ethan crouched beside her, taking her shaking hands. "You didn't start this war, Elena," he said quietly. "But it seems you're the one who has to end it." The storm had moved in overnight, drenching the valley and wrapping the Hartwell estate in a haze of rain. Thunder rolled across the sky as Adrian stared out from the study window, phone pressed to his ear. "I don't care what it costs," he said quietly. "Find every document, every call, every payment from Langston Holdings in the last 6 months." He ended the call and turned. Ethan stood in the doorway, his shirt sleeves rolled up, eyes rimmed with exhaustion. "You've been at this since dawn." Adrian didn't look away from the window. "We're not just protecting her, Ethan. We're protecting the family. If Eric Langston thought he could humiliate a woman carrying our father's legal heir, he's more foolish than I imagined." Ethan frowned. "You're calling her an heir already?" "She is one," Adrian said simply. "Adopted or not, the paperwork is real. Father made sure of it." Ethan crossed the room. "And what happens when Mother decides to challenge it? She'll never accept Elena." "Then she'll lose," Adrian said coldly. "I'll make sure of that." The door opened again, and Marcus entered, laptop in hand. "I have something." Ethan straightened. "Tell us." Marcus placed the computer on the desk and hit play. Grainy footage appeared. Eric Langston in a dim restaurant, shaking hands with a familiar face. Vanessa Cole. "She paid him a visit the day before the gala," Marcus said. "I traced a $50,000 transfer from her offshore account to one of Langston's subsidiaries right after that meeting." Ethan's eyes narrowed. "They staged it." "Exactly," Marcus confirmed. "They planned the public humiliation. Vanessa wanted to ruin Elena. Eric wanted to distance himself from the scandal before the board meeting next week. They figured one night of chaos would make her disappear." Adrian's jaw tightened. "We can't let this go unanswered. We'll release the surveillance video, let the world see who they really are." Ethan hesitated. "And turn Elena into a media circus again?" She just started breathing normally. "She's part of this now," Adrian said. "The moment she walked into that gala, she became a target." Ethan shook his head. "She's a human being, not a weapon for revenge." "Tell that to the reporters tearing her apart," Marcus muttered. Ethan exhaled sharply, pacing. "There has to be another way, maybe if we confront Eric directly." Adrian interrupted. "He won't talk. His lawyers already reached out. They're threatening to sue Elena for defamation if the video goes public." Ethan's temper flared. "He's unbelievable." Marcus clicked a key, pulling up another document. "There's more. Eric's company has been laundering money through shell charities. Guess who approved those transfers? Vanessa. She's not just a mistress, she's a co-conspirator." The room fell silent. Outside, lightning flashed, illuminating the portraits of their ancestors. Men who'd built empires and buried secrets just like this one. "Finally," Adrian said, "we'll expose them both, and when we do, Elena's name will be cleared permanently." Ethan stared at the rain-streaked glass. "You think clearing her name will fix her?" Adrian's expression softened. "Maybe not, but it'll give her a choice, to stop being their victim." A knock came at the door. A maid entered, pale-faced. "Mr. Hartwell, she's asking for you," she said to Ethan. "Miss Elena, she's in the garden." Ethan didn't hesitate. He grabbed his coat and headed for the door, heart pounding. Outside, the rain was relentless, soaking through his clothes as he ran down the steps. Through the mist, he saw her, standing by the stone fountain, barefoot, trembling, clutching a crumpled envelope. She looked up as he approached, eyes hollow. "It's from Eric," she whispered. "He says if I don't drop everything, he'll destroy what's left of me." Ethan took the letter from her shaking hands, his expression turning to steel. Then he's about to learn what happens when you threaten a Hartwell. Rain turned into a pale morning fog by the time the Hartwell brothers gathered in the mansion's media room. Dozens of screens flickered across the walls. Financial news, celebrity talk shows, gossip feeds. Every channel had the same headline: Langston Gala Scandal, Truth or Trap. Ethan stood at the center, arms crossed, jaw clenched. "They're twisting it again," he muttered. "Look at this. Vanessa's playing the victim now." Marcus tapped a keyboard, bringing up a live broadcast. Vanessa appeared on screen, sitting gracefully in a news studio, crocodile tears glistening under perfect makeup. "I never meant to hurt anyone," she said softly. Elena was unstable. She attacked me first. I was defending myself. Ethan's fist slammed the table. Lies. Adrian's tone stayed cool. Calm down. The truth's stronger than a few tears. He turned to Marcus. Do we have the footage ready? Marcus nodded. Edited, verified, time-stamped. It shows Vanessa ripping Elena's gown and Eric standing there doing nothing. Once this airs, their little pity act dies instantly. Ethan exhaled slowly. Let's do it. Marcus sent the file to trusted media outlets under Hartwell Group's seal. Within minutes, the video hit the airwaves. The backlash was immediate and brutal. Social media flipped. The same people who mocked Elena now defended her. She didn't deserve this. That poor woman was attacked in front of everyone. Elena watched from the sitting room, wrapped in a blanket. The sound of anchors repeating her name made her stomach churn. I didn't want this, she whispered. I just wanted to disappear. Ethan crouched beside her. You don't get to disappear anymore. You survived something people only talk about. You fought back. That matters. Before she could respond, Adrian entered, his phone pressed to his ear. We've got a problem, he said sharply. Langston's PR team is spinning it. They're claiming the video's been doctored, and that we're interfering for business leverage. Marcus cursed. They're accusing us of manipulating evidence? Exactly, Adrian said grimly. And Eric's already filed for an injunction to block further broadcasts. Elena's head dropped into her hands. He won't stop until he ruins me completely. Ethan placed a hand on her shoulder. Then we hit back harder. Adrian shot him a look. Careful, little brother. If this becomes a war between families, it won't be easy to contain. Then maybe it's time the world saw what kind of man Eric Langston really is, Ethan replied coldly. Later that night, Marcus returned from the city, rain dripping from his coat. We have proof, he announced, setting down a flash drive. Langston's been cooking his books for years, charity fraud, tax evasion, you name it. Vanessa's signature is on half the transactions. Adrian's eyes hardened. That's enough to bury them both. Then do it, Ethan said. Adrian hesitated. If we release this, there's no turning back. It'll destroy his company, his investors, and the rest of his family, including people who aren't guilty. Ethan's jaw tightened. He destroyed her without blinking. He doesn't deserve mercy. The brothers exchanged tense glances. Finally, Adrian nodded slowly. Fine, we'll do it my way, legally. Marcus, send this to the Attorney General's office anonymously. No one traces it back to us. Elena looked between them, her voice barely above a whisper. You're risking everything for me. Ethan's gaze softened. You're not the reason this started, Elena, but maybe you're the reason it ends. Thunder rumbled outside as Marcus hit send. The file uploaded, data bars climbing toward completion. A few minutes later, Ethan's phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number. He frowned. The message read, You don't know what you've just done. Watch your backs. Lightning flashed through the window as Ethan's eyes met Elena's. It's not over, he said quietly. It's only beginning. The following morning, the Hartwell estate felt heavier than ever. Rain still tapped against the glass, a rhythm that made every hallway sound like a ticking clock. Elena sat in the sunroom, watching the storm fade, her hand resting protectively on her belly. The baby kicked softly, her only anchor in a world spinning out of control. Ethan entered quietly, 2 cups of coffee in his hands. You didn't eat breakfast, he said. I had the chef make something light. I'm fine, she murmured, eyes distant. You say that every time. He placed the cup beside her, then leaned against the window frame. You don't have to be strong all the time, you know. She gave a tired smile. If I stop being strong, I'll fall apart. Before he could answer, footsteps echoed down the corridor. Marcus appeared, his face pale. We have a situation. Ethan straightened. What kind? Marcus hesitated. Security just spotted Vanessa Cole at the gate. She's demanding to speak with Elena, says it's urgent. Elena's chest tightened. She came here? She's screaming for cameras, threatening to leak more stories, Marcus said. If we throw her out, she'll spin it as proof we're hiding something. Ethan's voice hardened. I'll handle it. He strode toward the grand foyer, Marcus following close behind. Outside, beyond the iron gates, Vanessa stood under a black umbrella, flanked by reporters she'd obviously brought herself. Her red dress glistened in the drizzle like spilled wine. When she saw Ethan, she smirked. Finally, a Hartwell graces us with his presence. Thought you'd hide behind those stone walls forever. Ethan's tone was icy. You're trespassing. Leave now. Not until I talk to her, Vanessa snapped. Or maybe you'd prefer the press hear what I have to say about your little family secret? Reporters pressed closer, microphones rising like weapons. Ethan's eyes narrowed. You don't scare me, Vanessa. Oh, I think I do, she purred. I know things about your father, and about her. She glanced toward the mansion windows, where Elena was now visible behind the curtain. You really think she's just some poor victim? Please. You don't know half of it. Ethan's jaw clenched. You're lying. Maybe, Vanessa said with a shrug, but lies travel faster than truth. And right now, I own the narrative. Behind her, cameras clicked wildly. Ethan took one slow step forward, voice low enough that only she could hear. You're running out of time. Walk away before this gets worse. Vanessa leaned in, smiling like a viper. You think you're untouchable, Hartwell? I know about the adoption. I know what your father did. And soon the whole world will know too. For a moment, the only sound was the rain hitting the gravel. Then a car door opened behind them. Elena stepped out, a shawl draped around her shoulders. Her face was pale but steady. You wanted to talk, she said softly. Then talk to me. Vanessa froze, eyes flickering with disbelief. You shouldn't be here. You look pathetic. Elena walked closer, each step calm, deliberate. You hurt me, you humiliated me, and you almost cost me my child. I'm done being scared of you. Vanessa's smirk faltered. You don't have the power to fight me. Maybe not, Elena said. But I have something you'll never have again. The truth. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Cameras zoomed in, catching every flicker of tension. Vanessa's expression cracked, rage flashing behind her perfect smile. Ethan stepped beside Elena, his voice low but cutting through the chaos. If you're so proud of your lies, Vanessa, he said, then let's tell the world everything, including who you really are. The color drained from her face as she realized he knew something she didn't expect. The courtyard erupted with chaos. Reporters shouted, flashbulbs exploded, and Vanessa's painted smile faltered as Ethan's words echoed across the rain-soaked air. What did you just say? She hissed, her umbrella trembling in her grip. Ethan's eyes were hard, unflinching. You heard me. You've built your lies on other people's pain. But you forgot one thing, Vanessa. Secrets have a way of coming home. Her face paled. You don't know anything. Don't I? He said, his tone low and lethal. Because I think Eric does. Vanessa blinked rapidly, panic flickering behind her confidence. She opened her mouth to respond, but before she could, Adrian's voice boomed from behind the gates. Enough. The reporters turned as the eldest Hartwell brother approached, his suit immaculate despite the storm. This property is private. You've had your spectacle. Now leave before I have you arrested. Vanessa tried to speak, but Adrian's security team closed in, forcing her and the cameras back toward the road. Ethan guided Elena inside, shielding her from the flashes. You shouldn't have come out, he murmured. I couldn't hide anymore, she whispered. She would have twisted everything. Inside, the tension refused to fade. Adrian followed them into the foyer, his face grim. I have to say, that was reckless. Maybe, Ethan said, but she's bluffing. She doesn't know what we found. Adrian shot him a sharp look. Be careful, Ethan. When people like her are cornered, they bite. Before he could reply, Elena winced suddenly, her hand flying to her stomach. Ethan turned instantly. Elena? Her face drained of color. It's the baby. Something's wrong. In seconds, Ethan was at her side, supporting her weight as she gasped for breath. The sound of panic cut through the mansion. Call the doctor, now, he barked. Marcus came running. Ambulance is 5 minutes out. Elena collapsed against Ethan's chest, her body trembling. Please, she whispered, voice breaking, don't let me lose this baby. Ethan held her tighter. You won't. I won't let you. By the time the ambulance arrived, rain was pouring again, thunder cracking above the valley. Ethan climbed into the back with her, refusing to leave, even when the paramedics tried to push him out. Her eyes fluttered, her skin cold and damp. At the hospital, doctors rushed her into emergency care. Ethan paced the hall, his shirt soaked, hands stained with blood. Adrian arrived minutes later, his face grave. She's strong, Adrian said quietly, but you need to prepare for anything. I can't lose her, Ethan whispered. More to himself than to anyone else. Not after everything. Hours crawled by until finally a nurse emerged. The baby's stable, so is the mother, but she needs rest and no more stress. Ethan exhaled shakily. relief flooding through him. He entered the dim hospital room and found her asleep, a faint glow of color returning to her cheeks. Her hand rested over her stomach. He sat beside her, brushing damp hair from her forehead. "You scared me," he murmured. "But you're safe now?" "Both of you." Her eyes opened weakly. "Ethan, I'm here." Tears welled in her eyes. "Did I lose them?" He shook his head, smiling softly. "No, you're both fighters." She tried to smile, exhaustion dragging her back under. "You shouldn't care so much," she whispered. "Too late," he said, his voice cracking slightly. Has she drifted back to sleep? Ethan glanced at the IV drip, his blood type labeled clearly. The nurse's earlier words echoed in his mind. "You're a perfect match." "That's rare." He stared at the bracelet on her wrist, the same crest engraved into his ring. For the first time, Ethan wondered if fate had tied them together long before the gala, by something far deeper than blood. The rain had finally stopped by morning. Sunlight spilled across the hospital room, pale and quiet, touching everything with a sense of fragile peace. Elena lay asleep, her breathing steady. Ethan sat beside her, watching the light move across her face. He hadn't slept. Not since the night before. Not since the sound of her voice begging him not to let go. A knock came at the door. Adrian entered, holding a thick brown envelope sealed with red wax, the Hartwell crest stamped deep into it. "It came by courier," he said. "From father's attorney, postmarked 2 years before he died." Ethan frowned. "He's been gone for over a decade." Adrian nodded slowly. "Which means he planned this." He set the envelope on the table. "It's addressed to Elena Moore." Ethan looked at the name, unease growing in his chest. She should open it. "Not yet," Adrian said. "Read it first. Make sure it won't destroy her." Ethan hesitated, but broke the seal. The paper inside was aged, the handwriting elegant, deliberate. He read aloud in a low voice, "My dearest Elena, if this letter finds you, it means the truth has reached you at last. I have carried this secret for 28 years, a secret born from guilt and love. Your mother, Isabella, was the only woman who ever made me doubt the life I built. When she became pregnant, I wanted to protect her, but my wife found out. She left, and I chose my empire over my heart. I thought hiding you would keep you safe. Instead, I condemned you to loneliness. You are my daughter in every way that matters. I could not acknowledge you, but I made sure you'd never be left behind. One day when the world turns against you, the Hartwell name will protect you, as it should have from the beginning. Forgive me, my child, Arthur Hartwell." Silence filled the room. Ethan lowered the letter slowly. His throat felt tight. Adrian exhaled. "So it's true. She's his daughter." Ethan shook his head. "No, the DNA test said otherwise." Adrian gestured toward the letter. "Maybe he falsified the adoption records. Maybe he wanted to cover the truth before Mother found out." Ethan's mind raced. "Then that means—" "She's our half-sister," Adrian finished quietly. The words hit like a blow. For a moment, neither man spoke. The distant hum of hospital machines was the only sound between them. Finally, Ethan whispered, "She can't know. Not yet. She's barely holding herself together." Adrian nodded. "Agreed. But secrets have a habit of surfacing on their own. If this letter reaches the wrong hands—" The door creaked. Both turned sharply. Elena stood there, pale but awake, her hand clutching the doorframe. "If what reaches the wrong hands—" Ethan froze. Elena, her eyes darted to the letter on the table, her name written across it in familiar ink. "That's my mother's handwriting." "No," Ethan said quickly, stepping between her and the envelope. "You need rest. You're not ready." She pushed past him, snatching the letter. Her hands trembled as she read the first lines. Her lips parted, her voice a broken whisper. He was my father?" Ethan tried to reach for her, but she stumbled back, shaking her head. "All this time, everyone lied to me, even you." "Elena, I didn't know," Ethan said softly. "Not until this morning." Tears streamed down her face. "Then why do I feel like I just lost everything again?" She turned away, pressing the letter to her chest. "I don't belong anywhere. Not to him. Not to you. Not to anyone." Ethan took a step toward her, his voice raw. "You belong here, with the people who won't let your past define you." She looked up, eyes glistening. "Then tell me one thing, Ethan. If I'm his daughter, what does that make us?" Ethan's breath caught. The question hung between them like thunder waiting to break. The next week brought no peace. The letter's truth spread like wildfire through the mansion, whispered by staff, debated by lawyers, feared by every Hartwell brother. The news hadn't gone public yet, but it was only a matter of time. Adrian ordered silence. Marcus worked on legal containment. Ethan avoided eye contact with everyone, especially Elena. She stayed mostly in her room, the letter folded neatly beside her hospital bracelet. Sleep wouldn't come. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw her mother's face, kind, secretive, forever fading. My father was a man who hid me from his world. By morning, a knock shattered her days. Ethan entered, holding a newspaper. "It's out," he said grimly. The headline screamed across the front page, "Hidden Heir to the Hartwell Empire?" Beneath it, a photo of Elena leaving the hospital, Ethan at her side. Her stomach dropped. "Who leaked it?" "Doesn't matter now," Ethan said. "What matters is how we respond. Adrian's calling a press conference this afternoon. He wants to control the story before Langston twists it again." She nodded weakly, her hands shaking. "Do I have to go?" "You're at the center of it, Elena. You don't have a choice." That afternoon, the Hartwell family stood before a wall of flashing cameras. Reporters shouted questions, voices overlapping like gunfire. Adrian's expression was carved from stone. "Yes," he announced, "Arthur Hartwell legally adopted a child in secret. Her name is Elena Moore. We will respect his wishes. She is family." The crowd roared with more questions. "Is she the child of his mistress? Was your mother aware? Will she inherit?" Ethan stood silently beside Elena, a steady presence amid the chaos. But then, through the shouting, a new voice cut through, venomous, unmistakable. "Vanessa." She stepped from the crowd, microphone in hand, her face painted with mock sympathy. "Tell us, Mr. Hartwell," she called to Adrian. "If she's family, does that mean your youngest brother fell in love with his own sister?" Gasps rippled through the audience. Cameras pivoted. Reporters shouted her question again and again. Ethan froze, his chest tightening as the implications spread like wildfire. Elena's eyes widened, horror flooding her features. "Oh God." Adrian raised his hand for silence, fury flashing behind his calm. "That's enough." But Vanessa wasn't done. "I have proof," she said, pulling out her phone. "Messages, photos, I can show you just how close they've become." Before she could continue, Marcus appeared beside her, snatching the phone from her grasp. "You just admitted to hacking a private device," he said sharply. "That's a felony." Security surrounded Vanessa instantly. Her smile vanished, replaced with panic. Ethan stepped forward, his voice cutting through the chaos. "You think you can destroy us with gossip? You tried before, and you failed. But this time, the truth is on our side." The cameras flashed as security dragged Vanessa away, shouting curses. Hours later, silence returned to the mansion. Adrian poured himself a drink, staring at the fire. The damage is done. Even with the truth, the world sees scandal. Elena stood nearby, her face pale but resolute. "Then let them," she said quietly. "I've been called worse than someone's mistake." Ethan turned toward her. "You're not a mistake." She looked up at him, tears shimmering. "Then what am I?" He hesitated, then stepped closer. "You're the only person in this house who didn't ask for power, and that's what makes you different." She exhaled shakily, resting a hand on her belly. "I don't care about their empire, Ethan. I just want peace." He nodded slowly. "Then we fight for that, together." But neither of them noticed the message lighting up Ethan's phone. An encrypted email from an unknown sender. "Next time it won't be words. Watch her carefully, EL." The mansion had gone eerily quiet after the press conference. Cameras had finally disappeared from the gates, but tension still clung to the air like smoke. Elena sat by the fireplace, clutching a cup of tea she hadn't touched. The flames danced, casting faint light on her face. She wasn't thinking about the inheritance or the headlines, only the weight of what she'd learned. A father she'd never known, a name that didn't feel like hers, and a love she was suddenly told she couldn't have. Outside, the sound of tires crunching on gravel broke the silence. Marcus entered the room moments later, his expression dark. "We've got something," he said, "and it's worse than we thought." Ethan looked up from his phone. "What now?" Marcus set a folder on the table. "Vanessa's not just working with Eric, she's related to him." Elena blinked. "What do you mean, related?" "They share the same mother," Marcus said flatly. "Half-siblings, born 2 years apart." Ethan frowned. "That can't be right." "It's right," Marcus replied. "I confirmed it through public birth records and hospital archives. Same mother, Lorraine Cole. She used two different names, one for her marriage to Eric's father, and another when she gave birth to Vanessa. Looks like she hid it to avoid scandal. Adrian entered mid-conversation, his voice steady but cold, which means Eric Langston and Vanessa Cole were lovers and blood relatives. Elena gasped, covering her mouth. That's disgusting. Illegal, Adrian corrected sharply. And if this comes out, it won't just ruin their reputations. It'll destroy everything Langston Holdings owns. Ethan's eyes hardened. Then it needs to come out. Adrian shook his head. Not yet. We can't be the ones to leak it. That kind of scandal would burn everyone involved, including us. Elena set down her cup, trembling. You think they'll stop now? Vanessa tried to humiliate me. Eric tried to destroy me. They won't stop until I'm gone. Ethan moved closer, his tone gentle but fierce. Then we stay ahead of them. You're not alone anymore. But Marcus wasn't finished. There's more, he said, opening the folder again. Inside were photographs. Vanessa meeting secretly with a man in a suit, handing over a thick envelope. That's Langston's accountant. She paid him to alter company ledgers. Eric's been hiding millions in offshore accounts using charity money. Adrian's jaw clenched. Perfect. The same charities his company uses to claim moral superiority. Ethan nodded grimly. We'll use it. Legally, strategically. It'll end them. Elena stared at the photos, feeling her stomach twist. I don't want revenge, she whispered. I just want my life back. Adrian looked at her, his expression softening slightly. Then you need justice, not revenge. And sometimes they look the same. He left the room, leaving the folder behind. The fire popped quietly, echoing like a heartbeat. Ethan turned toward her. This changes everything, Elena. Once the truth's out, Eric and Vanessa will be finished. She looked up, eyes wet but steady. Then what happens to me? He hesitated. You start over. With your child, with a clean name. Her gaze met his. And you? He smiled faintly, though his eyes betrayed something heavier. I'll be right where you need me. Always. Before she could reply, Marcus's phone buzzed. He frowned, reading a message aloud. Breaking news, Vanessa Cole's private jet has gone missing en route to Bermuda. No contact for 6 hours. Elena froze. Missing? Ethan and Marcus exchanged uneasy glances. Far away, thunder rumbled again. And in that moment, none of them knew whether Vanessa Cole was dead or about to come back with vengeance strong enough to take them all down. The morning news broke like a thunderclap across New York. Every major network carried the same headline, Langston Holdings under federal investigation. Elena watched from the Hartwell living room as reporters swarmed the glass tower she once called home. The image of Eric being escorted into a black car in handcuffs filled the screen, his once perfect composure shattered. Eric Langston, charged with fraud, embezzlement, and tax evasion. The anchor's voice echoed. She couldn't look away. The man who had once promised her the world now stared blankly at the ground, surrounded by flashing lights and microphones. Ethan muted the TV, his expression unreadable. It's over, he said quietly. Elena shook her head. No, not yet. Vanessa's still out there. Marcus entered, holding a folder of printed reports. The Coast Guard found debris off Bermuda, small pieces of a private jet matching Vanessa's flight path. No confirmed bodies. So she could still be alive, Ethan said grimly. Adrian, who had just joined them, poured coffee into a glass tumbler instead of a cup. Alive or not, she's finished. The investigation ties her to Eric's shell companies. If she surfaces, she'll be arrested on sight. Elena leaned back, exhausted. It feels wrong, she murmured. I thought I'd feel free when they fell, but I just feel empty. Ethan looked at her gently. That's what happens when you're the only one who fought for truth while everyone else played games. She smiled faintly, but her eyes glistened. Do you think people ever change, Ethan? Or do they just get better at pretending? He hesitated. Some change, others just run out of lies. The quiet stretched until Marcus broke it. There's something else. The federal agents found a letter in Eric's office safe, addressed to you, Elena. He handed her an envelope. Her name was written in Eric's handwriting, firm but shaky. With trembling fingers, she opened it. Elena, if you're reading this, everything's already gone. I don't expect forgiveness. I never deserved it. Vanessa convinced me I was untouchable. I let her manipulate me into hurting you, into betraying myself. She threatened to expose something I couldn't risk, that my company was already drowning. I was too proud to admit it. You were the only real thing in my life. When you told me you were pregnant, I was terrified, not of the child, but of being seen for what I was, weak. I'm sorry. I hope one day you can build the life I destroyed. Eric. Elena folded the letter slowly, her throat tightening. He was a coward, she whispered. But at least, he knew it. Ethan reached for her hand. Closure doesn't erase the scars, but it lets them heal. She nodded silently, tears slipping down her cheeks. Marcus's phone buzzed suddenly. He glanced at the screen and froze. You're going to want to see this. He turned the screen toward them, a breaking news alert flashing across the top. Anonymous video surfaces. Vanessa Cole alive, promising revenge. The footage played. Vanessa, disheveled but alive, sitting in a dimly lit room. Her voice dripped venom. You thought you could bury me, she said, eyes cold. But I don't die that easily. The Hartwells took everything from me, and now I'll take everything from them. The video ended abruptly. Silence followed. Elena's heartbeat quickened. She's coming back. Ethan's jaw tightened, his eyes turning steely. Then we'll be ready. Because this time she's not facing the same woman she tried to break. She's facing the Hartwell blood she never understood. The world outside the Hartwell estate spun with headlines and speculation, but inside, time seemed to move differently, slower, heavier. The investigation, the scandals, the betrayals, all had left invisible scars. Yet beneath it all, another wound pulsed quietly, the one between Ethan and Elena. She avoided him for days, retreating into the quiet corners of the mansion. Every time she saw him, every time she felt his gaze, her chest ached with confusion. The letter from Arthur Hartwell had shattered the fragile peace she'd built. His daughter. Those two words echoed like a curse. One evening, she found herself wandering the garden, the same place where he'd once told her she wasn't alone. The fountain trickled softly under the moonlight. She pressed a hand against her belly, whispering to her unborn child. You're all I have now, she said softly. You have more than you think. She turned. Ethan stood near the path, his white shirt faintly lit by the moon. His tone was calm, but there was something restrained in his eyes, something that mirrored her own turmoil. Elena, he said quietly, stepping closer, we need to talk. She shook her head. There's nothing left to say. There's everything to say, he countered. You've been avoiding me since the letter. I get it, I do. But you're not alone in this confusion. Her voice trembled. How can you even look at me the same way after that? If it's true, if I really am his daughter. You're not, he said firmly. You heard what the DNA said. You're not blood. And even if you were. He paused, lowering his voice. Do you think love just switches off because of a piece of paper? Her breath caught. Ethan, don't. I can't pretend anymore, he said, taking another step closer. When I saw you that night, bleeding, terrified, humiliated, something in me changed. I didn't protect you because you were part of my family. I protected you because... He stopped, eyes glistening. Because I loved you. Elena's throat tightened. You can't say that. You can't. Why? He asked, his voice breaking. Because the world says it's wrong? Because people will gossip? Let them. They don't know what we've been through. Tears welled in her eyes. You don't understand. I've lost everything once already. I can't lose this too. You won't, he said, his tone soft but certain. Not while I'm here. For a moment, silence fell between them. Heavy, electric. Then she whispered, almost to herself, if the letter was true, if I really was his child, what would that make us? Ethan's jaw tightened. It would make us two people punished for someone else's sins. He reached for her hand slowly, giving her every chance to pull away. She didn't. Their fingers brushed, hesitant at first, then interlocked. For the first time in weeks, she didn't feel like the world was closing in. She felt warmth, steadiness, safety. Ethan, she whispered, tears streaming down her cheeks, I don't know what's right anymore. He smiled faintly, brushing her tears with his thumb. Then let's stop worrying about what's right and start doing what feels true. The wind stirred the leaves around them, carrying the scent of roses. The moment felt suspended, fragile and forbidden. But just as their hands tightened together, a shadow moved behind the hedges. A figure with a camera, capturing every second of the moment that could destroy them both. By morning, the world was no longer quiet. Elena woke to the sound of her phone buzzing relentlessly. Dozens of missed calls, hundreds of messages, her name splashed across every news site again. Hartwell scandal deepens. Secret affair between heir and illegitimate daughter? Her chest tightened. She didn't need to scroll far to see the photo. The photo. A stolen image of her and Ethan in the moonlit garden, their hands intertwined, faces close, eyes locked. The headline beneath it screamed betrayal. Her stomach twisted. No, no, this can't be happening. Ethan burst through the door seconds later, his face pale but composed. You've seen it, he said quietly. She turned the phone toward him. How did they even get this? Who took it? He clenched his jaw. Someone inside the estate, maybe a staff member. Adrian's already investigating. Elena sank onto the bed, trembling. They're calling me names again. Worse this time. They're saying I seduced you? That I planned everything just to get into the Hartwell family. Ethan knelt in front of her. Listen to me, you didn't do anything wrong. I did, she whispered, tears streaming down her face. I let myself believe we could have something normal, and now they'll tear us both apart. Before he could respond, Adrian entered, phone pressed to his ear. His tone was sharp. I don't care how much they're offering. We don't comment until I say so. Got it? He hung up, then turned to them. It's everywhere. The board wants answers. Mother's threatening to call a press conference. Ethan rose slowly. Let her. I'm done hiding. Think about what you're saying, Adrian warned. If you confirm the relationship, the company will lose millions. Investors will panic. Mother will disown you both. Ethan's voice hardened. And if we lie, what happens to her? She becomes the villain again. I won't let that happen. Adrian rubbed his temples. You're playing with fire, Ethan. The world doesn't forgive this kind of story. Ethan turned toward Elena, his gaze steady. Then let it burn. Hours later, they stood side by side at the press conference. Reporters shouted questions the second they stepped on stage. Cameras flashed like lightning. Mr. Hartwell, is it true you're romantically involved with the woman claiming to be your father's secret daughter? Ethan's voice cut through the noise. The rumors about Elena are lies. She's not my blood. DNA tests confirmed that weeks ago. A murmur swept through the crowd. Another reporter yelled, Then what is she to you? Ethan paused, the weight of the moment heavy on his shoulders. She's the woman I love. Chaos erupted. Flashes blinded them. Questions flew faster than bullets. When did it start? Does your mother approve? Is she pregnant with your child? Adrian stepped forward, blocking the barrage. That's enough. This conference is over. They rushed backstage, security forming a wall around them. Elena's heart pounded. You didn't have to do that, she said breathlessly. Yes, I did, Ethan replied. Because I'm tired of the world defining who you are. Before she could answer, a harsh voice echoed from behind them. Eleanor Hartwell stood in the doorway, her expression a mix of fury and heartbreak. You've destroyed everything your father built, she whispered. For her. Ethan met her gaze without flinching. No, Mother. I'm saving what's left of it. Eleanor's lips trembled as she turned her eyes on Elena. You've cursed this family. You'll regret the day you ever walked into our lives. Elena felt the words cut deep, but before she could speak, Ethan reached for her hand and held it tight. Then we'll face the curse together, he said firmly, unaware that, just outside, a black car was parked across the street, and inside, Vanessa Cole was watching them live on her phone, whispering, Perfect. Let's destroy them properly this time. 2 weeks passed. The world still whispered but began to change. What started as humiliation had become fascination, and slowly, respect. The press had moved from illegitimate daughter to survivor of betrayal. Elena had stopped hiding. She was tired of being defined by other people's sins. The Hartwell estate, once filled with lawyers and shouting, had quieted. In the center of that calm, Elena sat at her laptop, designing again. Her sketches filled the screen, soft lines, warm colors, a new project she had poured her soul into. On the folder's cover, she'd written 2 words, Eterna Studio. Ethan entered quietly, watching her work. You've been at that for hours, he said. She smiled faintly. Feels good to create something that's mine. Not his, not theirs, just mine. He nodded approvingly. You're building something powerful. Not power, she corrected gently. Purpose. The next day, she stood in front of the old Langston building, now abandoned, the nameplate half torn from the wall. Reporters had gathered again, but this didn't hide. She wore a white dress, simple but striking, and spoke calmly into the microphones. I spent years living in someone else's story, she said. Today, I start my own. Eterna's studio will be a space where women can rebuild after loss, where every mistake turns into a beginning. The crowd listened, silent for once. Cameras flashed, not with mockery but admiration. Her words struck a chord that money couldn't buy. By evening, the clip had gone viral. People shared her speech under a new hashtag, Eterna Rises. At the Hartwell mansion, Adrian watched the news with quiet pride. "She's good," he murmured, "better than any of us at controlling a narrative." Eleanor, standing nearby, said nothing, but her expression softened, barely. "She speaks like him," she whispered, thinking of her late husband. "Arthur would have liked her." Ethan smiled faintly. Then maybe he finally got something right. Later that night, a gala was held in honor of new philanthropic ventures. Elena attended. Her first public appearance as both a Hartwell and an independent businesswoman. The ballroom shimmered again, but this time she stood taller. No fear, no trembling hands, no shame. When Ethan approached, the music slowed. "You know," he said, "it's poetic. The last time we were at a gala together, you were falling apart. Tonight, you're the one holding everything together." She laughed softly. "Maybe you were right. Sometimes we have to burn to rise." "You did more than rise," he said. "You changed the story." Across the room, Adrian raised a glass to them. Even Eleanor nodded once, a quiet acknowledgement that spoke louder than forgiveness. As the night went on, reporters gathered again, asking questions, taking photos, but this time, no one shouted her down. Instead, people wanted to know more about her mission, her foundation, her strength. But amidst the celebration, a man in a dark suit slipped through the crowd and placed a small envelope in Ethan's hand. "From an anonymous sender," he said before disappearing. Ethan frowned and opened it. Inside was a single photo, blurry but unmistakable. Vanessa Cole, alive, standing on a dock somewhere tropical, boarding a yacht. On the back a note, "You celebrated too soon." He froze. Elena noticed his expression change. "What is it?" He forced a calm smile. "Nothing to ruin your night, just business." But as the lights glittered around them and applause echoed across the ballroom, Ethan's fingers tightened around the photograph. Far away, under the same moonlight, Vanessa raised a glass of champagne on the yacht deck and whispered into the wind, "Let the queen enjoy her crown before I take it off her head." The next morning brought a strange calm. The chaos of headlines and rumors had finally faded, replaced by admiration. Eterna's studio had launched officially, and Elena's message, "Every wound can become art," was spreading faster than any scandal ever had. The world finally saw her not as a victim, but as a woman reborn. Ethan watched her from the window of his office, pride softening his usual steel composure. She stood outside the new studio, surrounded by women who had once been broken too, now helping others rebuild. For the first time, he thought, this is what strength looks like. Then his phone buzzed. A message appeared on the screen. "You can't erase me. I'll see you tonight, V." His chest tightened. Vanessa. That evening, the Hartwell mansion hosted a private charity dinner. Elegant, intimate, attended by close partners and press. It was meant to mark a new chapter for both the family and Eterna's studio. Elena had no idea Vanessa was alive. Ethan planned to keep it that way, at least for a few more hours. She arrived in a silver gown, radiant under the chandeliers. When she entered, the room seemed to pause. Conversations softened. Even the cameras felt slower, reverent. Ethan walked toward her, every step deliberate, as if the world existed just to witness what would happen next. "You look," he stopped, smiling faintly. "There isn't a word good enough." She laughed softly, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "You should save the charm for the reporters." "Tonight," he said, voice lowering, "isn't about them." Dinner passed in a blur of music and toasts. When the lights dimmed and the violinists began to play, Ethan stood, tapping his glass gently. "There's something I need to say, to all of you, but mostly to one person." He turned to Elena, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "You walked into my world when everything around you was collapsing. You had every reason to hate everyone in this room, but you chose grace instead. You rebuilt not just your life, but the meaning of our name." Her breath caught as he knelt down before her, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. Gasps filled the room. "Elena Hartwell," he said, opening it to reveal a simple diamond ring. "I don't care what the world calls us, scandal, mistake, miracle. To me, you're the truth I was too blind to see. Will you marry me?" Tears glistened in her eyes. Ethan? She didn't finish. She didn't have to. The answer was already shining in her smile as she nodded through tears. Applause filled the hall. Cameras flashed. For a moment, everything was perfect, until the lights flickered. A single image appeared on the large projector screen behind them. Vanessa Cole, standing on a yacht deck, her eyes cold and alive. The crowd gasped as her recorded voice echoed through the speakers. Congratulations, Hartwells. Did you really think I'd vanish that easily? Enjoy your fairy tale while it lasts. The next chapter belongs to me. The room fell silent. Adrian barked orders to cut the feed, but it was too late. The damage was done. Reporters scrambled for their phones, snapping photos, whispering theories. Elena stood frozen, her engagement ring trembling in her hand. She's alive? Ethan's voice dropped to a whisper. Yes, and she's making her move. Adrian turned sharply. Security will track her down. She won't get close again. But Ethan knew better. Vanessa never attacked from the outside. She planted her poison within. He took Elena's hand, eyes locked on hers. I don't care what she tries. This time, we fight as one. Outside the mansion, a black car idled under the streetlights. Inside, Vanessa smiled at the ring on her finger, a twin of Elena's, and whispered, Let's see how much love survives a war. The following days were a blur of chaos. Vanessa's reappearance exploded across the news, turning the engagement celebration into another scandal overnight. Commentators speculated about her next move, tabloids printed wild theories, and social media fed on the drama. But inside the Hartwell mansion, things were deadly calm. Too calm. Ethan paced the office, his phone vibrating non-stop. Adrian was on speaker with federal investigators, Marcus tracing digital footprints from the yacht video. But every lead vanished like smoke. Vanessa was a ghost, again. She's not hiding, Ethan said, breaking the silence. She's waiting. Elena entered quietly. Her eyes were red from sleepless nights, but her voice was steady. Then we stop waiting. We end this. Adrian turned to her. You mean? Yes, she said firmly. She wants attention? Then we give it to her, on my terms. That evening, Elena posted a video across every platform. No publicist, no script, just her and the camera. My name is Elena Moore Hartwell. I've spent months living through lies, cruelty, and betrayal, but I refuse to be a victim again. Vanessa Cole, you want the world to hear your story? Fine, let's end this face to face. Tomorrow night, Hartwell Hall. No cameras, no security. Just truth. Within minutes, the internet exploded. Final confrontation trended worldwide. Critics called it reckless, supporters called it brave. Vanessa responded 3 hours later with a single post, "See you there." The next night, rain poured like it always did before every major storm in their lives. The grand hall was empty, silent except for the ticking of an antique clock. Ethan stood hidden in the shadows despite Elena's request to face Vanessa alone. He wouldn't let her risk everything again. At exactly 9, the doors creaked open. Vanessa entered, elegant, pale, and dangerous. You always did know how to put on a show, she said. Elena faced her, calm and unflinching. This isn't a show. This is closure. Vanessa laughed softly. Closure? You stole everything from me. The company, the man, the name. I didn't steal anything, Elena interrupted. You destroyed yourself trying to own what was never yours. Vanessa's smile vanished. And what about him? She pointed toward the shadows, where she knew Ethan was hiding. Do you really think he loves you? Or do you think he pities you? Ethan stepped forward, his voice sharp. You don't get to talk about love, Vanessa. You used it like a weapon. Vanessa's mask cracked. You think you're better than me? We're the same. Both of us clawing for scraps of affection from men who play gods. Elena took a slow breath. Maybe once I was like you, angry, broken. But I learned something you never did, that forgiveness isn't weakness. It's freedom. For a moment, Vanessa faltered. Her eyes glistened, but the hardness returned quickly. You think the world forgives you? They'll never forget what you are. Elena smiled sadly. Then let them remember, but they'll remember me standing tall. Vanessa's lips parted, but before she could speak again, Adrian entered flanked by federal agents. Vanessa Cole, he announced, you're under arrest for fraud, blackmail, and attempted extortion. Her eyes widened. You set me up. Ethan's voice was quiet but firm. No, you set yourself up when you sent that yacht video through stolen corporate accounts. Every trace led straight back to you. The agents moved in, handcuffing her as she screamed. You think this is the end? You'll never be clean? None of you. Elena turned away as they dragged her out. The rain outside drowned her fading voice. Ethan approached, wrapping his arms around her trembling shoulders. "It's over," he whispered. She looked up at him, tears of relief glistening. "No," she said softly. "It's finally beginning." Months later, sunlight bathed the Hartwell estate as laughter replaced scandal. Eterna Studio flourished, helping women like Elena rebuild their lives. On its first anniversary, Ethan stood beside her, their child in her arms, the ring gleaming under the morning light. Reporters asked for one final quote. Elena smiled at the cameras. "They called it a scandal," she said gently. "I call it survival." And somewhere far away behind prison bars, Vanessa watched the interview with a cold smile, whispering, "Let her have her peace for now." So, that's how our story comes to an end. But hey, you're still here, aren't you? If you've stayed with us all the way to this moment, maybe something in Elena's journey touched your heart. Maybe it reminded you of a time when you had to stand up after life knocked you down. You see, this story wasn't just about betrayal, wealth, or scandal. It was about resilience, about finding light after the darkest storms. The Stoics used to say, "What stands in the way becomes the way." That's what Elena learned. Pain isn't the end, it's the beginning of transformation. Like Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. In the end, forgiveness became her freedom. And maybe that's what each of us needs to remember. No matter how broken things seem, healing starts the moment we choose peace over revenge. So, if this story stirred something inside you, don't keep it to yourself. Hit the like button, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to our channel. Because here, we don't just tell stories, we help you feel them.